Second generation C2, 1963 through 1967. Corvette Stingray Coupe. The second generation, C2, Corvette, which introduced Stingray to the model, continued with fiberglass body panels, and overall, was smaller than the first generation. The car was designed by Larry Shinoda with major inspiration from a previous concept design called the Q-Corvette, which was created by Peter Brock and Chuck Pullman under the styling direction of Bill Mitchell. Earlier, Mitchell had sponsored a car known as the Mitchell Stingray in 1959 because Chevrolet no longer participated in factory racing. This vehicle had the largest effect on the styling of this generation, although it had no top and did not give away what the final version of the C2 would look like. The third inspiration was a Mako shark Mitchell had caught while deep-sea fishing. Corvette Stingray taillights. Production started for the 1963 model year and ended in 1967. Introducing a new name, Stingray, the 1963 model was the first year for a Corvette coupe, and it featured a distinctive tapering rear deck, a feature that later reappeared on the 1971 boat-tail Buick Riviera, with, for 1963 only, a split rear window. The Stingray featured hidden headlamps, non-functional hood vents, and an independent rear suspension. Corvette chief engineer Zora Arkus Duntiv never liked the split rear window because it blocked rear vision, but Mitchell thought it to be a key part of the entire design. Maximum power for 1963 was 360 horsepower, 268 kilowatts, 365 PS, and was raised to 375 horsepower, 280 kilowatts, 380 PS, in 1964. Options included electronic ignition, the breakerless magnetic pulse-triggered Delcotronic first offered on some 1963 Pontiac models. On 1964 models, the decorative hood vents were eliminated and Duntiv, the Corvette's chief engineer, got his way with the split rear window changed to a full-width window. 1965 Corvette Stingray Coupe. Four-wheel disc brakes were introduced in 1965, as was a big block engine option. The 396 cu in 6.49L V8. Side exhaust pipes were also optionally available in 1965, and continued to be offered through 1967. The introduction of the 425 horsepower, 317 kilowatts, 431 PS, 396 cu in 6.49L big block in 1965 spelled the beginning of the end for the Rochester fuel injection system. Few could justify spending $245 more for 50 horsepower, 37 kilowatts, 51 PS, less, even though FI could deliver over 20 mpg on the highway and would keep delivering fuel despite high G loading in corners taken at racing speeds. Another 1963 and 1964 option was the Z06 competition package, which offered stiffer suspension, bigger, multi-segment lined brakes with finned drums, and more. Only a couple hundred coupes and a single convertible were factory-equipped this way in 1963. With only 771 fuel-injected cars built in 1965, Chevrolet discontinued the option at the end of the 1965 production, having introduced a less expensive big block 396 engine rated at 425 horsepower in the middle of the production year and selling over 2,000 in just a few months. For 1966, Chevrolet introduced an even larger 427 cu in 7.00L big block version. Other options available on the C2 included the Wunderbar auto-tuning AM radio, AM-FM radio, mid-1963, air conditioning, late 1963, a telescopic steering wheel, 1965, and headrests, 1966. The Stingray's independent rear suspension was successfully adapted for the new 1965 Chevrolet Corvair, which solved the quirky handling problems of that unique rear-engine compact. 1967 Corvette Stingray Convertible. 1967 was the final model year for the second generation. The 1967 model featured restyled fender vents, less ornamentation, and backup lamps, which were inboard in 1966, became rectangular and centrally located. The first use of all four taillights in red started in 1961 and was continued through the C2 lineup except for 1966. This feature returned for the 1967 model year and then continued on all Corvettes since. The 1967 model year had the first L88 engine option that was rated at 430 horsepower, 321 kilowatts, 436 PS, but unofficial estimates place the output at 560 horsepower, 418 kilowatts, 568 PS, or more. Only 20 such engines were installed at the factory. From 1967 through 1969, the Holley triple two-barrel carburetor, or tri-power, was available on the 427 L89, a $368 option, on top of the cost for the high-performance 427. Despite these changes, sales slipped more than 15% to 22,940, 8,504 coupes, off close to 15%, and 14,436 convertibles, down nearly 19%. With potential buyers anticipating the car's overdue redesign, sales for the Stingray's final year totaled 22,940, down over 5,000 units from 1966 results. Meanwhile, Chevrolet readied its third-generation Corvette for the 1968 model. Thanks for watching. Corvette Stingray C2 second-generation classic car detail.